Joining me now is Jennifer McCormick, Democratic nominee for governor. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I want to start with, why do you want to be governor?
It's really simple. We just deserve better. I think Hoosiers are ready for common sense and balance brought back to the State House. They want Hoosiers who are going to pay attention to our health care and to our education and our jobs. And we just deserve better than what's happening right now. 20 years of one party rules a long time.
One of the biggest topics of conversation amongst Hoosiers is property taxes. How will your plan ensure that Hoosiers get relief while also making sure that local units of government don't take a hit to their budget? And that being said, in your plan, will there be any unit of government, whether that be local or state, that takes some sort of a fiscal hit?
Yeah, so we put out our common sense property tax relief plan. It was very well received. And what we did is looked at some really good language that Republicans have put out at the General Assembly and Democrats, but it didn't really go anywhere. And we took the best of the best and put it together. It would have a savings of $600 million right away. We have a fiscal, we have language, and it wasn't because it was bad language per se. It needed to be put together. And that's where that balance piece is super helpful. If you have enough people who are willing to work together. So our plan doesn't take away from the local level as much. It really concentrates on that state level, but it does add relief to all Hoosiers, particularly seniors, because I know many of them are on fixed incomes and they're struggling, renters, veterans, but all Hoosiers would feel a little relief. Would a local level government feel it? Minimal. And so we know that would be our schools, our police, our fire, our parks, and we were trying to minimize that. That's what our goal was. And again, it's been very well received because we know Hoosiers want that relief and they want it right away, so ours is ready. The problem with my opponent's plan was he had version 1 and version 2, and version 1 was hammered the local level and gave a 25% increase to farmers, and so obviously that didn't go well. I'm a fifth generation farmer, so it didn't go well in my household either. But the second version still comes after that local level quite a bit. So we were trying to feel the hit at the state level versus the local level.
And when you say the hit at the state level, what will that mean for the state?
I mean, it's a $600 million savings to Hoosiers. So, I mean, that would equate to you're going to have a fiscal revenue hit at the state. You know, when we're sitting on such a surplus, though, I feel like we can absorb that. Also, when we would do our budgeting, we would have to just prioritize where we need to prioritize. I'm very fiscally conservative. When I was state superintendent for 4 years, I know where there's waste and where we can take some of that hit. But you know, things are expensive, and we want good roads, we want good schools, we want to obviously fund our first responders, our libraries, and so we need to continue to do that and make sure we're being responsible.
You've also released a plan to legalize marijuana. Do you see marijuana as a way to make up dollars that could be lost through this tax reform?
Absolutely. And you know, we're an island on our own. Every state around us and many across the nation have already legalized to some level. We came out and said we'd have a commission, and then from that commission we would do it right, look at what states did well and what states didn't do well in order to be smart about it. Also, that includes working with local law enforcement. That's a no-brainer that we've got to include them, but there's a lot of people that need to come to the table for that commission. Go into medical use, because I'm hearing a lot from people who are struggling with PTSD or chemo or muscular issues. They're like, we want to be able to have this as a medical choice versus what they're being allowed or given it as a choice, and then move to adult use eventually. But you're looking at minimal right out of the gate, around $170 million and hundreds if not thousands of jobs, and people are ready to go. I mean, it would be such a boost to what is happening in Indiana that it's time.
Another agency that's been a topic of conversation this entire year is FSSA, from families of children with medical complexities and seniors still on the waiting list for their benefits. What would you do, one, to fix the budget shortfall that led to all of this, and to make sure that Indiana's most vulnerable are taken care of?
We budget what we prioritize. So obviously that is not going to be a one budget cycle fix because it's so massive. But we need to look at how can we not just where those dollars are and how can we reprioritize to bring some of those back, but how can we look at the caregiver regulations that Indiana put on itself? How can we look at that federal matching grant to say where do we have some wiggle room here to self-correct? So again, it goes back to doing a deep dive to look at all the angles that we can to make sure Hoosiers get what they deserve.
Your opponent has released an education plan that would expand school choice. Obviously, this is an area of expertise for you. First, do you support school choice? Why or why not?
the way Indiana has defined school choice, I do not support the school choice. What I do support is parents having a choice and kids having a choice. Our school choice allows schools to pick and choose who they want based on a zip code, based on their academic performance, based on their income, based on anything that they feel they want to base it upon, whether their parents are divorced or someone in their families, LGBTQ. I mean, it's really the school's choice. If we're looking at the spirit of it, it should be about parent choice and about student choice. I am all about kids having a great opportunity and education, but it also comes down to how do we pay for that? So we have saturated the market of choice so much, and all the data is showing us, let's be smart, we collect a lot of data, spend a lot of money. The data is showing us that academic performance is not being reflective of the amount of money put into it. Right now, $1.6 billion is going away from traditional public schools where 90% of our kids attend into a very small percentage of our kids, and the program is just not showing results. So it's not about being anti a program just because. It's the data shows that there are issues. It's also about the lack of accountability with acceptance into the program.
As a former educator, you know all about outcomes. What would you do to better outcomes of students here in Indiana?
It's tough because we've had 20 years of one party rule and we have 20 years of their policies. And even when we said these are not great policies, they ignored us most of the time. And so we were trying to implement bad policy. And when you implement bad policy, you get bad results. First of all, the people that are pushing those policies are not educators, and they've not been in the classroom at the K-12 level. And it's been and they were very dismissive of that practitioner voice for decades. When I was a teacher and I saw it as a principal, a local superintendent. So going back to what works, looking at the data we have, not changing for the sake of changing. A lot of what we see at the State House is disruption because the disruption is needed to make public schools look bad. So we don't have any trend data that's very consistent, and we have no good data to show that they're collecting to show the performance of the programs that they're pushing. So making sure that we're being very diligent in being vocal about policies that they're pushing, but also to looking at that implementation piece.
You think there's studies that need to be done?
Absolutely, and there's studies that already have been done, and why are we not looking at those? We have to have General Assembly members that have the courage to do that. That's why, one, it's so important we break that supermajority. We have great people who are running for the House, Josh Lowry, Matt McNally, Heidi Beidinger, I mean, I can name them off, Tiffany Stoner. We have great people running that we need to get them in because they are too saying, if we're going to spend money on all that data, let's use it and let's be smart about it. And most Hoosiers can get behind that. It's common sense.
Access to IVF and abortion have become national topics of conversation, but we know that we've seen these topics brought up at the State House too, and state houses across the country. You said you'd work to reverse the abortion ban in Indiana if elected. How would you go about doing that, especially when we know it's a one-party controlled state house right now?
Well, I trust women. And I trust our healthcare providers. I've voiced it before. I've been pregnant. I understand the complexities with that. I was very fortunate, but some women are not. Also, there are horrific circumstances of rape and incest that people need options. But I also know too, as an executive branch, the lack of sometimes authority, but there are pieces of boards and commissions and agencies and staffed in such a way that it makes sense that we are providing as much flexibility legally that we can, and making sure that we're not going after our healthcare providers, and making sure that we're not trying to criminalize women for taking advantage of things that they can. So targeting resources and better education for preventative would also be a piece of this. Our common sense abortion plan that we put out that really did make a lot of sense to a lot of people because it targets what we need where we need it. But obviously working with the General Assembly, it's going to be a huge part of it, and being a voice and using that platform to champion for citizens-led initiatives. As Indiana, as Hoosiers, we should have that. That's one more avenue for voice, and I know why they don't, because they know if we have that voice that we would not be in this circumstance.
Do you think a solution is creating ballot initiatives in Indiana?
Absolutely. I mean, those citizens-led and ballot initiatives are huge, and making sure that we have that voice. And, other states around us have done it, and I know that the abortion piece of it has been a question across the nation, and every time it's on the ballot, the citizens win, because so many people and so many Hoosiers are with me on this issue that the standards of Roe worked, and women have to have options.
What's your closing statement to Hoosiers as to why they should elect you as their next governor?
First of all, I will fight for freedoms. academic, reproductive freedoms. I will fight for their rights and their freedoms. I will also take care of those kitchen table issues while we're developing a strong economy. I will bring back common sense and balance, and I'm obviously the best choice for that. I've led a statewide agency before. I understand the state budget, and we're ready day one. So my encouragement, though, is you got to go vote. You know, we're 50 out of 50th in voter turnout. I welcome that bipartisan vote, but I'm just encouraging people to vote so that they have a voice and they have someone who's more focused on people over a party.
Jennifer McCormick, Democratic candidate for governor, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you. Thank you.